What's going on, guys, and welcome to Sunday Night Live, where we talk boxing. As we do every Sunday. Going to be a quick stream today, only half an hour, and I've got a special guest, man. I've got Mr. Laurie from AFTV on again. Now, he came on here. I only brought him on today. He's normally on the podcast, as you guys are aware, but I only brought him on today because people wanted to get your reaction. They know that you've been going in on this topic with regards to Manny Pacquiao, the WBA, Ryan Garcia. And since we recorded the podcast on Thursday, there's been some significant news in the welterweight division. As you would have heard already, I'm sure, Manny Pacquiao has now been made champion in recess, and the super champion has been given to Yordenis Ugas. So, you know, people were like to me, oh, what did Laurie say? What did Laurie say about it? So I thought, you know what, let me just quickly get him on for half an hour today, just to share his views on that, as well as, you know, last weekend's action. We'll touch more about it in the podcast on Thursday, but we'll briefly talk about it here. But yeah, people want to hear what your reaction was to that news, considering, you know, you've been going on about it you've been beating the drum about it for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I have, because basically I just felt that the situation was totally unfair and unwarranted, and yet another example of boxing not getting its house in order. And when I did get the news on Friday, I think it was you were the first one, actually, so shout out to you for that, for sending me the news, and then I checked it out. I have to say, I mean, the first question I said to you on Friday, wasn't it? I goes, recess, what's all that about? You know what I mean? He should really be stripped of the title, because he held the title in abeyance for so long, not defending it, talking about having these celebrity matchups with Conor McGregor and God knows else. And then we hear about the Ryan Garcia, which was obviously pathetic. So yeah, the WBA, it took them long enough, but they made the right decision. Although I was disappointed, actually, that they made him a champion in recess. Because that
just explain to those people that don't know what champion in recess means.
Well,
it means that.
Sorry.
Okay, it means that, like, Manny Pacquiao has been demoted from his super champion status. So he's no longer the WBA super champion. What champion in recess means, and I'll see people up in the comments already in the chat. Feel free to add your opinions as well. What champion in recess means is that he no longer has the belt, but if he is to compete competitively again, he'll be first in line to challenge Ugas for that belt. Basically, that's what it means. So when it says champion in recess, it means he's no longer the title holder, but he gets first dibs if he wants to challenge for it again.
Yeah, that's my understanding of it. And again, I don't agree with that. You know what I mean? Because basically, you're treating Manny Pacquiao with this kind of status that I don't think is right. I don't think it's deserved. He's held that title for so long. He's shown no clear indication of when he's going to defend it. He's announcing all these fights that mean nothing to the WBA, let's face it. So they've got to do something with their belt. And I thought they would have stripped him. Basically, what they've done is put him on hold. Again, showing complete deference to the fighter. But hey, man, I mean, you know, we shouldn't be too surprised by these types of things. But at least Yordenis Ugas gets an opportunity to be involved in some big fights. I mean, he had the fight with Sean Porter over a year or so ago. He performed creditably, actually. In fact, there are a few people saying that he won the fight. So at least this gives his career a bit of a boost. He will probably now go on to have a big money fight with Errol Spence. They're both under the same PBC banner, Premier Boxing Champions, the Al Heyman stable, where I would imagine they'll have a unification fight. And I would imagine, let's be honest, that Errol Spence would be a big favourite in that fight, and he'll probably come through. And then I'm projecting forward, but what I can see here is Errol Spence beating Ugas, although it will be a competitive fight. I would imagine he'll beat Ugas. But then he probably won't, excuse my skepticism, but, you know, he probably won't then defend against Crawford, but he'll use that as leverage to try and shaft Crawford with the money. So he'll probably say, right, I've got the titles now. I've got the majority of the titles. So that 60-40 is now 70-30. We'll probably end up seeing something silly like that. You know how boxing runs. But to go back to your original question, man, I'm glad the WBA have taken some action. But as far as I'm concerned, they didn't go far enough.
Got a comment here from Mohammed. He's put, I agree. He has not defended it in a year and 6 months and is trying to take these celebrity fights and not take it seriously. Yeah, the WBA as well. It wasn't just Manny Pacquiao that they demoted at the weekend. They also demoted Cruiserweight, I forgot his name, and Manuel Charles as well. But then what they did, Manuel Charles, yeah. But then what they did was they sanctioned Trevor Bryan and Bermain Stavern for the WBA regular belt. So Trevor Bryan hasn't been active in like a couple of years. Bermain Stavern, 42, hopelessly out of his prime. So for me, it was like 1 step forward, 5 steps back. And these sanctioning bodies, man, they're a joke. They're an absolute joke. The WBA, the WBC, the only one that I've always said that I'll have any sort of credit for just is the IBF. And even them, their mandatories leave a lot to be desired. Some of the opponents, look at Triple G's one, for example. Yeah. So I'd say they're the best out of a bad bunch, but they're all really just, they're what's wrong with boxing right now.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that there's not one of those sanctioning bodies that you can look upon as exemplary, you know what I mean? They're all much of a muchness. Yes, you're right. The IBF, they do insist on their mandatories. They're not so keen on rematches, which is something I applaud. But then if you look at some of the fighters who they give ratings to, you've got to scratch your head and wonder, how did that guy... I mean, let's take that last guy you Triple G for. I mean, no disrespect, man, but who was that guy? You know what I mean? Seriously, who was that guy? I've even got like Polish friends, and I text them when that fight was made, and they couldn't even tell me who he was. Oh, yeah, I think I've heard of him, one of them said. You know what I mean? And he's fighting for a world title? Oh, come on, man. You know what I mean? It's a joke.
Yeah.
But then when you look at the state of boxing with all this splintered sanctioning bodies and there's so many titles, the proliferation of titles at each weight, it's little wonder, you know what I mean? It's just, the whole thing is just complete chaos and a mess. And in that chaos, you get guys that will just able to engineer the sport to their own ends. And that's what people like Manny Pacquiao are seeking to do. And let's face it, Manny Pacquiao has been a great fighter and been a great servant to the sport in many ways. But then in other ways, man, he's manipulated and used the sport to his own ends too. So, And
got a comment here. He's put, Jayhon Lecap, he's put, Furman is not inactive about 2 years before his fight with Pacquiao, but they don't strip him. So he's basically saying, like, why didn't they strip Furman?
Yeah.
I think Furman, he was out of an injury. And I think he did get, what happened with it? Didn't they demote him somehow? He did have an injury at the time.
He had an injury and he got married and 1 or 2 other things. He also confessed to not being motivated by the sport anymore. I can remember seeing him around about that time when he had the injuries and so forth, when he was talking about getting married. And he was talking, he was coming out quite openly and saying that he was struggling for motivation. He was talking about retirement. You know what I mean? So maybe that's why they stripped him as well. Maybe they got wind of that and thought, well, actually, this guy's got no serious intentions of defending his title. So let's take it off him. You know what I mean?
No, they did. They didn't strip him, did they?
Well, no, I thought you said that they'd stripped him.
I think that comment there was saying that Furman wasn't active for 2, so why didn't they strip him? But they stripped Pacquiao. But I think it was because Furman had the injury, which might have been one of the reasons why he might have gotten a bit of an exemption from them.
Yeah, he got some latitude because of the injuries. But I think what was happening with Thurman is that it was going on a bit too long, wasn't it, for a lot of people's liking? And then, like I said, he was openly expressing the view that he was struggling for motivation. Some people took that to mean he was ducking the likes of Errol Spence and people like that, which is why now the roles have been kind of reversed. That he's now saying that he's fully motivated. He wants to get back in and contest the big fights. But Spence in particular and Crawford to a lesser extent have both sort of poured cold water on that and said, well, when you had the belts, you weren't interested in fighting no one. Now I've got the belts, I'm not interested in fighting you. You've got to work your way back up, which to be fair, is fair, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Although, a good, motivated, energized Keith Thurman is actually good for the sport. But I do agree, you can't just come back after a self-imposed hiatus. Now that you, for whatever reason, whether it be financial or whatever, you now fancy getting back into the sport, then you want to go straight to the top of the queue and start calling out the big names. So you can understand their reluctance to give him a shot.
Conrad Boxing's put here, big up, bro. Thank you for joining the chat. He's put, Bogdan Dinu is now ranked number 3 W. It's got to be a joke. That can't be for real.
Listen, man. Listen, all I'm going to say is this, right? If Bogdan Dinu has got the right connections, you may well find that is why he's been able to scale those rankings. I mean, I saw a documentary not so long ago where they was featuring just that, how I think it was the former head of the IBF, Bob Lee, he got arrested, didn't he, and charged and imprisoned for taking money for putting fighters up the rankings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At the behest of certain promoters, you know what I mean? So we know for a fact that this happens, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Conrad's also put here, they stripped Pac-Man to cover up the Manuel Charr corruption. Yeah, I think Manuel Charr's looking to sue, apparently, after that fight between Trevor Bryan and Bermane Stiverne was sanctioned by the WBA. I think he's looking to... It's just all a mess, man. And these sanctioning bodies, it's just unreal what's going on. And it's not going to hold anytime soon.
Exactly. And the consequence of all that is that boxing is not taken seriously. And you get the fighters now, they're openly saying, wasn't it, you told me last week that Ryan Garcia was saying openly that it's not about the belts, it's about the fighters. And to a certain degree, what he said there is actually right, because we've got so little respect for the sanctioning bodies now and their belts that if somebody makes what the public determine to be a good fight, all the interest will be on that fight, not so much the belt. Because let's face it, you can give out belts for anything now, you know what I mean?
To see one positive with the belts, and it might not be to us, but to the fighters out there, those like people like Trevor Bryan, for example, even though the WBA belt that he's got, we don't look at him as the real chat. He's like got the regular belt. We look at Anthony Joshua as the WBA heavyweight champion. But Trevor Bryan, who's not a big name, for example, he could use that for value. Do you know what I mean? And like that might be able to get him a big fight.
Yeah, because we all know the deal. Listen, back in the day, the belts situation, it kind of got out of control because the TV networks would almost insist on some kind of belt being up for grabs to kind of make the fights more attractive, you know, because it has to be said that if you're getting two guys and they're fighting for a so-called title, to the casual observer especially, it gives it that certain degree of attraction that it wouldn't have got normally. So, you could see how that situation arose. But the problem with that situation, man, it's been so played out. Like I said, there's been a mad proliferation of titles. There's been creation of more weights. I mean, it weren't too long ago that you and me were talking about this kind of, what was it? That kind of bridger weight.
Bridger weight. Yeah, I think they're having their first fight soon.
Yeah.
Someone's up. Yeah.
Which is basically something that the WBC had created just so that they could create another belt and ultimately ask for more in sanctioning fees. So it's a financial thing.
Got a comment here from Jay.
A wise man once said to me, always follow the money trail when you're looking at things like this. And I think that's good advice.
Got a comment here from Jay Hon again. He's put, it's kind of unfair because the belt should be earned by winning and fighting for it, not just giving the belt on hand without going in the ring and fighting for it. Yeah, I totally agree. This is the sort of like era that we're in. Do you know what I mean? In the perfect world, belts should be won in and out of the ring. Do you know what I mean? And I guess where the belt can be stripped is if you don't make the weight for a particular fight, or let's say you fail a test. If it's down to situations like this, we shouldn't even be getting here in the first place. So with the Pacquiao thing, I don't think that's unfair, because at the end of the day, he wasn't looking to challenge anybody in the rankings. He was talking about you can't win the belt and then not fight anyone in the rankings.
When you say it's unfair, what do you mean? That him being stripped to the belt or being put in this
I think that's what Jay Hon's referring to. I don't think in this situation, I think it's unfair that this situation happens, but it's not unfair for them to strip Pacquiao. I don't think that's unfair.
Yeah. Okay, right, yeah. Because I thought I was gonna go in on you there because I thought you was gonna say that, you know what I mean? I mean, Manny Pacquiao should keep his belt or something like that.
No, I think it's the right thing they did.
Yeah, absolutely. But I would go further than that, Daryl. I would say he should have been stripped of the title because he cannot hold the title in abeyance for so long and show absolutely no willingness to defend it, as was proven when he was openly and transparently negotiating with the likes of Conor McGregor, who is not even a professional boxer. Okay, he had that one fight. We all know what happened there. Yeah, you're looking to negotiate celebrity fights and then catch weight fights against the world's Instagram follower champion of the world, Ryan Garcia. You know what I mean? When you should be defending your belt against worthy challengers. You know what I mean? And let's face it, Pacquiao's been called out by a series of fighters at the top of that division. Errol Spence, Crawford, Sean Porter, Uganis, I mean, to name but 3 or 4. And he's not made a meaningful response to any of those guys. And in the meantime, he's negotiating to fight YouTubers and, you know what I mean, and MMA guys and doing catch weight fights. You know what I mean? So he should have been stripped.
Yeah.
The only time there should be any latitude given to fighters is if there's a special circumstance or a mitigating circumstance, like an injury or, you know, a sickness or something like that, or a bereavement or something, you know what I mean? Something significant why that guy's not able to defend the title. But if you just kind of put the title in abeyance, meanwhile you're going off and doing your own thing, I mean, come on now. You know
I agree. I mean? Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you're an all-time great. You're a so many division world champion like Manny Pacquiao is. You know what I mean? Rules should be rules.
Yeah.
It would appear that that is not the case if you're certain so-called celebrity fighters, which of course Manny Pacquiao is.
Mohammed's put here, I would say just have the one belt like the UFC in each weight division, yeah. But they won't do that, obviously. Ideally, it'll never happen, will it? It'd be great. The Ring magazine tried to do it. I mean, they do have it. But like, and I do take that belt seriously, the Ring belt, but it's just
I
not
don't
enough attention is paid to it.
The Ring belt seriously anymore. I don't take the Ring magazine seriously anymore either, because to me, and I've said this before on your show, the Ring magazine now is compromised. The Ring magazine is owned by Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy. You know what I mean? And if you look at their articles and their rankings, it reflects that. You know what I mean? So you have to have a body that's independent, that's not been brought out by other people for their own self-interest. You know what I mean? So the minute that happened and they started doing ridiculous things like putting Ronda Rousey on the front of the magazine, I just lost all respect for that publication. You know what I mean? And I'm speaking as somebody that really used to religiously buy that magazine back in the day. I lost all respect for it. All respect for that magazine, man.
Conrad said here, would you
guys who write for the magazine that know this stuff? But at the end of the day, man, the whole concept has been compromised.
Conrad Boxing said here, would you really want the UFC model with Eddie Hearn or someone else on top? Listen, ideally, there'd be one belt. I don't think the UFC model would work in boxing. But if we were living in a perfect world, there'd be like one belt, one champion. Not necessarily like how the UFC does it, because it's a bit different over there compared to here. It wouldn't work here. But
that UFC model would not work in boxing for the simple reason being, if you look at the UFC model, which you know, to be fair, does work. Dana White or Dana White, or however you want to pronounce his name, he's got an unwieldy influence over that whole organization. He set that up. He makes the rules and he dictates what happens. He makes the fights. Now for UFC, it does work because they've got a limited amount of fighters and they've got a limited number of weight divisions. And so, you know, they do have a situation whereby featherweight, lightweight, welterweight, you know, middleweight, light heavyweight, etc., they have one designated champion, which of course is a lot better than boxing, where you've got, you know what I mean, so many, the WBA, the WBC, the WBO, the IBF, the WBF, the IBO, you know what I mean? And then they've all got their so-called world champions as applies to that particular sanctioning body. And I just don't think in boxing that's ever going to work. I mean, the late John McCain, who's a American politician, he ran against Barack Obama. some years back. He was a keen boxing fan, and he was talking about bringing trying to regulate it in boxing in America and bring it under one commission. He was talking in terms of that, but obviously never got round to achieving it. But it's going to be a very difficult thing to do, man. There's lots of vested self-interest there. It would be an almost impossible thing to pull off. And
I agree.
You know what I mean? You've got all these other entities across the world and different promoters and the fight. Oh, it's just a morass. You know what I mean? It's a cesspool, man.
On the other hand, we've got about 10 minutes left. We're only going to be here for half an hour today, but want to quickly speak about the PBC card yesterday. Before I get into that fight as well, let me just say the PBC, when they put up a list of champions on their graphic, because obviously Caleb Plant is super middleweight, so they put a list of the champions and contenders in that division. And notably, they missed out Billy Joe Saunders, who holds the WBO belt, because the PBC just don't recognize the WBO as a sanctioning body, because they feel that they've said stuff about, whatever's happened, they don't recognize them. So again, it's just too much politics and everything else going on. But before I get into it, let me just quickly read this comment. IA has put here, Hearn controls women's boxing and Natasha Jonas got blacklisted for beating Harper, pays women low purses.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I would like to say, I want to go on the record as saying this. We've been talking about the WBA for most of the time on the show today. But, the other organizations are not exempt. And to take that further, it's not just what happens abroad. We've seen a lot of that happen in this country, some of the shady goings on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With the way things operate in this country. So, I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that we've got it right over here either. Again, it all boils down to, Daryl, self-interest and money. You know what I mean? And we've seen it. I've been watching boxing for tens of years, man, and I've seen it. I can go right back to the Mickey Duff, Jarvis Astaire days. That probably won't mean a whole lot to some of the people watching this show. You know what I mean? And then he was usurped by Frank Warren. We've seen Eddie Hearn come in now, and that kind of unholy situation that exists with Sky and stuff like that. Yeah, it's very disappointing, man. You know what I mean? Again, boxing is just one of those sports, man, where it's always had problems that way. You know what I mean?
Let's quickly touch on Caleb Plant, who defeated Caleb Truax yesterday. 12-round lopsided shutout. Literally won every single round. It was pretty much how he predicted it, wasn't it? So Caleb Plant, dominating performance, defeating Caleb Truax. Obviously now he's going to look to put himself in there in the mix for a fight against Canelo Alvarez. I saw quite a few people calling Caleb Plant out after that fight. I saw Benavidez, I saw Edgar Berlanga, I saw loads of people calling him out. So they feel like they can pick him off. But what was your thoughts on the performance? No surprises?
No surprise. No surprise at all. I mean, I said on the show earlier this week when me and you were on there, I said that, listen, man, Caleb Plant excites me as a fighter, but that particular fight he was having didn't excite me at all. And so it proved. I actually watched a fight, man, and that's like 3/4 of an hour of my life that I'm not going to get back. You know what I mean? So it was a hard watch because basically Caleb Plant just outclassed his opponent. You know what I mean? And it was a shutout. A lot of people have been critical of him and saying, listen, man, you should have got him out of there. But then the situation that I spoke about with Caleb Plant on your show earlier in the week, which is that he's a very good boxer, very talented, but he's not a big puncher. And Caleb Truax, whatever you want to say about him, man, he is a tough guy. You know what I mean? He can hold a shot. So, yeah, man, it was just one of them where round after round, it was just the same pattern being repeated. Caleb Plant would just jab his head off, basically do pretty much what he wanted. The only thing he couldn't do is get him out of there. Now, after the fight, when that question was put to him, you know what I mean, don't you think you could have got him out there? Or he reacted by saying that he'd hurt his hands. Now, whether that's true or not, some people are saying that that's an excuse. We will never know, will we? So I guess we have to take him at his word. But I must admit, I'm slightly disappointed as well they didn't get him out of there, man. You know what I mean? Because there were times there when it looked like if he stepped on the gas, he could probably have landed enough punches that even if he didn't knock Truax out, it might have given the referee a decision to make, if you know what I mean. And then that would have taken all of us out of our misery in watching the fight. Because trust me, man, it was a hard watch. But I still believe that Caleb Plant is a very good fighter.
It kind of reminded me of Devin Haney against Yuriorkis Gamboa, but Conrad Boxing here has put Plant was sharp last night, but his defense depends too much on his mobility. I think Canelo can slow him down with body shots, then walk him into the ropes and hurt him. Yeah, let me get your thoughts on this, because I agree with what Conrad's saying here. But one thing that you've said over the last couple of weeks is that you feel that Canelo is avoiding people like Caleb Plant. Let me just quickly speak to Jay on here. He's put, have a good one. Gotta go. Salute. Thank you for your comment, bro. Have a good evening. Appreciate that. Well, going back on this, going back here quickly, 1 second. Oh, wait a minute. 1 minute. Well, like you did say last couple of weeks that you feel that Caleb Plant was one fight that Canelo was avoiding. Do you think after last night's performance, that he'll still avoid him?
Well, let me qualify what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, right, if you look at Canelo's career, he's consistently avoided fighting the best fighters in the division, right? Now, I also said, right, that Canelo would likely beat Plant because of Plant's lack of punching power, right? Let's be honest, Caleb Plant, and he's not going to get a decision over Canelo, yeah? So he would have to stop him to win pretty much, or at least put him on his ass 2 or 3 times. And I don't see that happening. So I would actually favor Canelo to win the fight, but I stand by what I said, which is what Canelo will seek to avoid the more challenging fighters. And Caleb Plant is one of them. You know what I mean? To me, it's no surprise he's gone after Billy Joe Saunders, because he sees that as an easier fight.
Do you see it as an easier fight?
Yeah, I do. I absolutely do. I think Caleb Plant at this stage in his career represents a far more serious challenge to Canelo than Caleb Plant would.
Then Billy Joe, what do you mean?
And I also think that if you put Caleb Plant and Billy Joe in the ring, right? And I'm not saying this to shit on Billy Joe. I think that Caleb Plant beats him comfortably. Wouldn't be a great fight probably, but seriously, I think Caleb Plant would box his ears off. I really do. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So
listen, man.
The 2 guys that I identified that he's seriously ducking are Benavidez and Charlo. Charlo, he's been ducking for a good while now. At middleweight, he was ducking it. He's now ducking him at super middleweight. You know what I mean?
I think you got more of a case of Triple G ducking Charlo than Canelo, in my honest opinion.
I think they both ducked him. I think they both ducked him. Now, like I said before, does that mean they're scared of him per se? No. Does that mean that Charlo automatically beats Triple G and Canelo? Not necessarily. But I think that those 2 guys have looked at Jermell Charlo with his dimensions, his size, his strength, his power, the confidence that he's exuded. And they probably thought to themselves, I'll go down an easier route. I absolutely 100% believe that's what he's done. Would they be the first fighters to have done this? No. But what I'm saying about Canelo, if you're portraying yourself to be the face of boxing and the superstar of boxing, then the 2 doesn't go hand in hand. And
what does Charlo bring? What's he got for Canelo at this stage, other than a tough fight?
He's got size over him.
No, I'm talking about the fight. No, I'm talking about what's he bringing to the table. I'm not saying he's not a sell. I'm not saying he doesn't sell or he isn't a thing fighter, but you look at Canelo, he's going to go for a champion, isn't he?
What, you mean like what he did for Avni Yildirim?
I mean, Charlo is a champion now at middleweight. Yeah. But if he's competing at super middleweight, why would you say he's ducking a fighter at the weight below him?
Because we all know that fight makes sense, right? That fight makes sense. And some of those fights that Canelo's had.
I think Triple G and Charlo makes more sense.
Why would you go up to light heavyweight and fight Kovalev? That didn't really make no sense, because we all knew, apart from you getting a belt for free, let's be honest, you wasn't going to defend that belt against anyone, you know what I mean, behind that. So really what he did was just go up in weight, pick off an opponent that he thought was vulnerable, which he very much was, and he got the win. But what I'm saying is, but when real challenges are being presented to you, you've not shown that same willingness. You know what I mean?
Box in the chat here, he's put salute family. Listen, man, we're going to have to wrap it up in a minute, man, because we only said half an hour today. We'll expand more on the podcast itself. But listen, I just wanted your thoughts on the whole Manny Pacquiao being stripped and just our quick thoughts on Caleb Plant as well, with his performance last night. Mohammed's put here, is Charlo a world champion at middleweight? I'm confused because of all this franchise and silver WBC belt stuff. Now, quickly, yeah. But Jamal Charlo is he's the full WBC champion now. Canelo was the WBC franchise middleweight champion, but since he hasn't competed at middleweight for quite a long time now, they've kind of revoked that status, I believe. So Charlo was upgraded to WBC middleweight champion. I said that he was ducked by Triple G because Triple G and Charlo were due to fight for the #1 spot in the WBC rankings, and Triple G just passed on it. No one even said anything about it.
Yeah.
So that's why I say that he's definitely ducked Charlo compared to Canelo did.
We all know that if you've been, let's say, so how it's tended to have worked in the past. So Jamal Charlo's champion at middleweight, yeah? So if they announce that they want to step up based on his resume, right, and the fact that he defended the WBC belt at middleweight, you would automatically, I mean, you could say it's right or wrong, but previously that's what they've done. They've elevated the guy into the top 10 of that weight class above so that he can get the title shot. And what I'm saying to you is that he's called out Canelo now at middleweight and super middleweight. And I just find it strange that they haven't fought, or Canelo hasn't even seriously entered into negotiations with it. But yet he's very keen to pick off the likes of Rocky Fielding and people like that. Now he's very keen to fight Avni Yildirim, you know what I mean? And talk about he wants to unify the division now because he's seen how the landscape's panned out. Benavidez lost his title on the scales. He was a serious threat to Canelo. The man was even saying, I don't want to fight Mexican or Mexican-based fighters. Now you're targeting Billy Joe Saunders because you've seen Billy Joe Saunders perform against the likes of Martin Murray, and you feel, Canelo, that that doesn't represent a serious threat to you. So all of a sudden you want to get that fight made. And I'm saying, as great as Canelo is in the ring, a lot of the stuff that goes on out the ring with him, I just find it very hard to embrace.
Going to wrap it up here with this last comment here. Conrad has put, Laurie is right, but maybe he is also too harsh on Canelo. Yeah, I agree. I agree. But listen, man, we'll go into that more on Thursday. Just wrap it up for us tonight. You know, for those that are tuning in, thank you all for tuning in. Hit the like button on the way out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. But yeah, just wrap it up for us, man. Your thoughts on that comment from Conrad and just in general about Pacquiao again.
I'll just reiterate what I've said earlier. Listen, man, Canelo is a great fighter, but there's a lot of things that go with him that I don't embrace. And I would also say quickly is that the one thing about someone like Caleb Plant is that he's only going to get better. How old is he? 26, 27 now?
28, he's 28.
Oh, 28. Okay. So he's not reached his physical peak yet or prime. So, you know what I mean? By the time he does get round to fighting Canelo, if he does, I think he would give Canelo a very good fight, a much better fight than he's had in more recent times anyway, put it that way.
Yeah. And on Pacquiao, just to say you agree with the decision?
Yeah, I agree with the decision. The only issue I've got with that is that he should have been stripped because you're still currying favor. You're still saying to Pacquiao, well, you know what, even though you ain't defended the belt for 2 years and you've been doing all that other stuff, you know what I mean? We're fawning at your feet so much. So when you do want to come back, Manny, you've got a world title shot right there. I mean, why, you know what I mean? When other fighters get stripped, they don't put them into recess. David Benavidez didn't get that option, did he? When he lost the title on the scales, which, you know, okay, fair enough. It was his own fault. But he wasn't put into recess. He's having to work his way back up. He's having to starting to call out other guys to get back up there. Should be the same for Manny. He hasn't defended the belt. He's shown no willingness to defend the belt. And now you're taking a piss by talking about catch weight fights with other fighters in lower weight classes than you. You're talking about fights with YouTubers. You're talking about fights with Conor McGregor. Meanwhile, our belt, WBA belt, is just, you know what I mean, sitting there picking up dust.
Let's wrap it up there, man. We'll go in a bit more on Thursday. But listen, guys, thank you for joining in the chat. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for hitting the like button. Feel free to continue to share the video, get it out there, people. And we'll catch you all on Thursday. Make sure you're there.
No recess, no peace. No recess, no peace.